What's going on, family? Look, doing my studies this morning, I ran across two verses that are very similar in nature, but they have two different outcomes. They have two different outcomes, but they're very similar in nature. One of them comes from the book of Psalms and the other comes from the book of Ephesians. And honestly, I think understanding these two verses will help us more inside of our relationship, will help us more inside of our marriage, will help us more inside of our friendship. Honestly, will help us in any situation where anger is involved or hurt is involved. And the first verse comes from the book of Psalms, chapter 4, verse 4, and it says this: "Do not sin by letting anger control you. Think about it overnight and remain silent." Remember that. Think about it overnight and remain silent. The other verse comes from the book of Ephesians, chapter 26, and it says this: "Be angry, sin not. Do not allow the sun to go down on your anger." And for years, I never really understood what it meant when it said, "Do not allow the sun to go down in your anger." Because I always thought that meant that we have to create a resolution to that situation right then and there. That is what I thought that meant, that we have to create a resolution to the situation right then and there, because we're not finna go to sleep angry or mad at each other or this, that, and the third. But what I've come to realize is that even though you create a resolution to the situation, some people still feel angry within their spirit. I'm gonna say that again. Sometimes, even though you create a resolution to the situation, some people still feel angry within their spirit. That even though you rectify the situation, some people are still hurt. They're still feeling that pain. They're still feeling it. They're still feeling it. And what I've come to realize is, based off that verse, when you utilize what is in the feet of Psalms chapter 4, verse 4, when it says, when it tells us to think about it overnight and remain silent, that is going to help us. That is going to help us not allow the sun to go down on our anger. Why is that? Because when scripture tells us to remain silent, being silent doesn't mean just not saying anything. That's not what that means. Being silent means getting in the presence of God. Because it is through that period of silence where we're able to see what it is that God needs of us, and we're able to hear what it is that he needs us to do to create a resolution in that situation. See, a lot of people just think, I'm not going to say nothing. Forget it. I'm just not going to say nothing. And I used to be that person. I'm telling you the truth. I used to be that type of person that either we're gonna sit there and talk about it. I will follow the person around. I really did this in my previous relationship. Follow the person around the house. Hey, we finna talk about this. Now, what do you mean this, that, and the third? While she was trying to get space for herself to think about it, I'm trying to force her to talk. And what happens is when you try to force somebody to talk that's trying to get space for themselves to be able to think, you create a bigger situation than what was intended to happen. Every situation does not need to be talked about right then and there, especially when emotions are heightened and you're still having that spirit of anger and an emotion inside of you. Because what's going to happen is that person is going to say something that may trigger you, and then you're going to say something that triggers that person, and now you've created a downhill spiral within your relationship, within your marriage, and even your friendship that was never intended to happen. So when it's told to us that we need to think about it overnight, that thinking about it overnight means we're getting in the presence of God. We're remaining silent in our position. We're getting in the presence of God. We're praying to him, seeing what it is that he needs us to say in this situation, that we're not just create healing for ourselves, but also healing for the other person that is involved in that situation. We have to get out of this notion of rushing people to talk about things that they need to think about and they need to process in the presence of God. Because what you don't realize is when you actually get in the presence of God, you're thinking about it overnight, you're remaining silent, you're hearing from him. What happens is you get a renewed mind, you get a renewed spirit, you're able to go inside of that situation purified. All of the anger, the frustration that you once had is not there, and you're able to talk to this person with a clear mind to create a better resolution for the situation that is at hand. That is what it means to not allow the sun to go down on your anger. It doesn't mean that the situation will be rectified, no. But when you get in the presence of God and you're remaining silent and you're allowing him to cleanse you of all of that anger, of all of that frustration, of all of that hurt, now you're able to go to sleep in a peaceful state of mind. You're able to wake up in a peaceful state of mind, and you're able to talk to that person peacefully to create a positive resolution. Now, I get it. You may be like, well, what if the other person ain't do that? What if the other person, they still hot and hostile? I get it. But what you don't realize is sometimes, well, I'm not even going to say sometimes, a lot of times, how you handle a situation can influence how they handle it. And men, I'm really speaking to you on this one as well. I'm really speaking to you on this one as well. Because you don't understand the influence that you have within your relationship. And I get it. I get it. I was that man. I did not understand the influence and the authority that I had within any of my relationships. I did not understand my position and how much influence that I had on everybody that was everybody that was in my household. So what happens is when you don't understand your influence that you have, everybody just running wild, including yourself. It's no order. There's no order inside of your household when you don't understand the position that you have, the authority that you have, and the influence that you have over everybody within that situation. And you shouldn't have to operate out of authority, but mostly out of influence. People would do what they see you do. So men, say if your lady, she's still hot and hostile, but you've thought about it, you've prayed about it, you've allowed God to guide you in this situation. When you go talk to her, you're able to talk to her in a respectful, gentle, and loving manner to help calm her down. Remember, you're the head of your household. You're the head. You have to be able to operate in the influence that God has given you to be able to calm everything in your household down the way that he needs it to. So she may be still hot and hostile, but you're calm. You've sat in the presence of God. You've allowed God to direct you in how to handle this situation. So best believe that God is going to handle that situation exactly how he told you he was going to handle it. You go in there and you talk to her in a very gentle, loving, caring way, an embracing way, to where she truly understands, okay, I get your side. I understand your side. And fellas, also be able to receive what she said as well. I'm telling you these things because of personal experience. I've been in these situations, man. I'm telling you. My goal in this life is to help guide people to better marriages and relationships. And I'm using personal references within myself to help you with that. I've been in these situations. So I know how detrimental it is to rush into a conversation when both people involved in that situation, their emotions are heightened. They're still angry. I know how detrimental that is. But I also know how beneficial it is for two people to go get in the presence of God, understand what God needs them to do in that situation, and come back with a better resolution. Arguments are a choice. Disagreements are inevitable. Arguments are a choice. Arguments come when disagreements aren't handled correctly. I'm going to say that again. Arguments come when disagreements aren't handled correctly. So when you don't sever the roots to that disagreement and you let it continue to grow, what do you think is going to happen? It's going to give root to arguments. You don't have to have these arguments within your relationship. You don't have to have these arguments within your friendship. You don't have to have these arguments within your marriages. You don't. They're a choice. Disagreements are inevitable. Everybody's going to disagree. People are created differently, so everybody's going to disagree with each other. But I want you to understand how powerful it is to take a step back, especially after a situation of anger has just occurred within your marriage and your relationship. To truly get in the presence of God, that's what, like I said, that's what it means to be silent. Silence means getting in the presence of God, hearing him, so that he can cleanse you of all that anger, of all that frustration, of all that hurt, of all that emotion, so that when you go to sleep, you're going to sleep at peace. And when you wake up, that is the same peace that you're going to give to your partner. So men, women, everybody, We have to do better with this. And I think understanding these two verses, and I pray that I explained it in a way where you can easily understand it, but understanding these two verses and how to properly use them within our marriages, within our relationship, within our friendship will, create more love, will create more peace. You see what I'm saying? Will create more closure within our relationship. Look, don't rush to rectify a situation if your emotions are still hiding. Give yourself time. Allow God to work inside of you. Allow God to work inside of your partner so that when you do talk, it is a better resolution for both parties. I urge you. And if you aren't in a relationship, if you aren't in a marriage, I pray that you take this with you and that you do your own study and that you sit with God to understand it for yourself as well. Just how he put it on my spirit, I just want to be in a position to help other people. You feel what I'm saying? Whether if you're in a relationship or whether you're not in a relationship, whether if you're married or you're not married, I think this is best for us to understand. And it's going to help us in future situations within whatever relationship we're in, whatever marriage we're in, whatever friendship, all of these things. I think understanding these verses and how to apply them effectively within our situation is going to better our situation. So I hope that was helpful. Y'all make sure that y'all like, subscribe, share, comment, everything. All right. I love y'all.